The slideshow I'd prepared for my wedding reception wasn't filled with childhood photos, it was filled with evidence. On 4 giant screens, our 200 guests stared at screenshots of intimate emails between my fiancé, Bruce, and my maid of honor, Cassie. They saw the business plan for the architectural firm they planned to launch using my stolen designs, funded by our wedding gifts. The final slide was an audio file, a recording of them mocking my trust and toasting to their future. The room was silent, save for a few sharp gasps. Bruce's face was white with shock. Cassie's was streaked with ruined makeup. Everyone looked at me, the bride, standing with the microphone. They expected tears. They saw cold, calm fury instead. This wasn't a bride having a meltdown. This was a woman taking back her life. But this moment of public detonation wasn't the real beginning. The story started a week earlier, with a misplaced file and a hidden USB drive. The beginning was the mundane frustration of a misplaced file. It was Tuesday, 8 days before the wedding, and I was looking for the structural engineering contract for the Hawthorne Tower, a project that had consumed the better part of my last 2 years and was set to become the crown jewel of my career. It wasn't where it should have been. I prided myself on my meticulous organization, a trait that served me well as an architect, but the folder was simply gone. I checked my digital archives, my cloud storage, my desk drawers. Nothing. A flicker of annoyance, sharpened by pre-wedding stress, coursed through me. Bruce had been in my office the night before, helping me organize some blueprints. He was always so supportive, so eager to be involved in my work. "You're a genius, Alara," he'd say, his voice a warm balm on my frayed nerves. "I'm just in awe of how your mind works." Lately, though, I'd been feeling scattered, forgetful. I'd misplace sketches, forget client meetings I was sure I'd scheduled. Bruce would always be there to smooth things over. "Don't worry, babe," he'd say with a gentle squeeze of my shoulder. "You've got so much on your plate with the wedding. It's totally understandable." Thinking he might have packed the contract by mistake while gathering his own things, I walked into our bedroom and knelt by his briefcase. It was a handsome leather satchel I'd given him for his birthday, sleek and professional, just like the man himself. I unlatched it, the soft click echoing in the quiet room. Inside were his laptop, a few files for his latest entrepreneurial venture, and a notebook. No contract. My shoulders slumped. It was probably just my own disorganization after all. As I went to close the briefcase, my fingers brushed against a small, hard ridge in the lining of the lid. A hidden compartment. Curious, I felt along the seam and found a tiny zipper pull. I tugged it open. Inside was a single silver USB drive, nothing more. It wasn't his usual brand. A prickle of unease, cold and sharp, went down my spine. This was a secret place. Why would he need a secret place? My heart began to beat a little faster as I pulled it out and walked back to my office, the small metal rectangle feeling unnaturally heavy in my palm. I told myself it was nothing. A backup of his own work, a surprise for me. But the feeling of dread was a physical presence, a cold hand settling on the back of my neck. I plugged the drive into my computer. A single folder appeared on the screen, innocuously labeled Project Nightingale. I clicked it open. The world tilted on its axis. It wasn't one file, but hundreds. The first I opened was a PDF, a detailed business plan for a new architectural firm, Sterling Designs. The founders were listed as Bruce Sterling and Cassandra Hale. Cassie, my Cassie. I scrolled, my breath catching in my throat. The portfolio section was a gallery of my own work. The Hawthorne Tower. The Serenity Pavilion. The award-winning coastal residence I'd designed for the DeWitts. Every single one of them was there, presented as their own. My client lists, my proprietary design methodologies, my financial projections, all stolen, repackaged, and claimed by the 2 people I trusted most in the world. My fingers, numb and clumsy, clicked on another folder. This one was labeled Correspondence. It was an archive of emails between Bruce and Cassie, stretching back over a year. The subject lines told a story of escalating intimacy. Thinking of you. Last night. Our plan. They weren't just stealing my work, they were sharing a bed. My bed, sometimes. The words blurred as a hot, stinging wave of tears blinded me. The clinical language of their business plan gave way to breathless, sordid declarations of love and lust, interspersed with cruel jabs at my expense. My trusting nature was a running joke. My passion for my work, a character flaw they found amusing. Then I saw the audio file. It was dated from 2 weeks ago. My hand trembled as I double-clicked. Their voices filled my silent office, impossibly clear, laced with the smug warmth of expensive whiskey. "To us," Bruce's voice said, a low, triumphant purr that I now recognized as predatory. "And to our new firm, built on the back of Saint Alara, the ever-giving." Cassie's laughter, a sound I had always associated with shared joy and sisterhood, was sharp and brittle. "Did you see her face when she couldn't find the hawthorn specks? She looked like a lost puppy. It's almost too easy, Bruce. She trusts us so completely." "That's what I love about her," he said, and the cruelty of it punched the air from my lungs. "Her blind spot is the size of a planet. The wedding gifts should give us just the seed money we need. A month from now, we'll be on a beach in Bali, and she'll be trying to figure out where her career went." "And her fiancé," Cassie added, her voice dropping to a husky whisper. "Don't forget that." "That too," he chuckled. "A small price to pay for our future." The recording ended. I sat there, frozen, the silence of the room pressing in on me. The heartbreak was a physical thing, a catastrophic, tectonic shift deep within my chest. It wasn't just a crack, it was a complete shattering. The love, the trust, the shared history, all of it was a lie. A carefully constructed illusion designed to facilitate a theft. They hadn't just broken my heart, they had tried to gut my life, to steal the very essence of who I was and sell it for parts. Just as I was about to let out a scream, a primal howl of agony, I heard the front door open. "Alara? Babe, I'm home," Bruce's voice called out, cheerful and carefree. Panic seized me. I slammed my laptop shut, my hands shaking so violently I could barely control them. I shoved the USB drive into my pocket, my mind racing. I couldn't let him see me like this, not yet. I had to be smart. He walked into the office, a grocery bag in one hand, his smile as bright and empty as a movie set. "Did you find that contract?" he asked, setting the bag down. I forced my lips into a smile, a grotesque parody of my normal expression. "No, not yet. I think I must have filed it under the wrong client code. My brain is just wedding mush," I said, my voice miraculously even. He came over and kissed my forehead. "I told you to take it easy. Don't worry, it'll turn up." His touch felt like a spider crawling on my skin. This was my first test, and I had passed. I had lied to his face, and he had believed me. The thought brought me no comfort, only a chilling sense of my own newfound capacity for deceit. The tears that had threatened to fall evaporated, replaced by something else. A cold, crystalline clarity. The shock receded, and in its place, a slow-burning anger began to build, forging the shattered pieces of my heart into something hard and sharp. A quiet breakup was a gift they didn't deserve. Annulling the marriage would be letting them off easy. They wanted a public celebration of their union? They would get one. They had built their stage. I would write the script for the final act. I copied the entire contents of the USB drive onto a secure cloud server, my movements precise and deliberate. Then I deleted the original folder and placed the drive back in its hidden compartment, closing the briefcase with a soft, final click. The Alara who had opened it was gone forever. In her place was a woman with a week to plan a wedding and a lifetime of revenge to deliver in a single night. The week that followed was the most difficult performance of my life. I became a master of deception, a smiling, radiant bride-to-be whose inner world was a landscape of ice and fury. The dramatic irony was a constant, bitter companion. On Wednesday, I had my final dress fitting. Cassie was there, fussing over the lace on my train, her eyes shining with what I now knew were crocodile tears. "You look breathtaking, Alara," she whispered, her hand on my arm. absolutely perfect. I looked at our reflection in the three-way mirror, the happy bride and her devoted maid of honor, a perfect picture of betrayal. I smiled back at her, a wide, brilliant smile that didn't reach my eyes. "I couldn't have done any of this without you, Cass," I said, and the truth of the statement was a sharp, painful barb. That night we had dinner with both sets of our parents. My father, beaming with pride, made a toast. "To Alara and Bruce," he said, raising his glass. "Two brilliant people who have found their perfect partner. May your future be as beautiful as the buildings you design, Alara." Across the table, Bruce caught my eye and winked, raising his glass to mine. "To our future," he mouthed silently, his smile so full of counterfeit love it made my stomach turn. I clinked my glass against his, the sound a tiny false chime of doom. The greatest test came on Friday, 2 days before the wedding. I was in my office, staring at the Hawthorne Tower blueprints, when Bruce came in, carrying 2 mugs of tea. He set one on my desk and wrapped his arms around my shoulders from behind, pressing a kiss to my temple. "Still working?" he murmured into my hair. "You need to relax, my love. Let me help." He pointed to a section of the plans. "What's this here? The HVAC integration looks incredibly complex." He was fishing, I knew, trying to get me to explain the proprietary ventilation system I had developed, the one detailed in the business plan on the USB drive. The old Alara would have launched into a passionate, detailed explanation. The new Alara smiled sweetly up at him. "Oh, it's just some boring technical stuff," I said, breezily rolling up the blueprints. "Nothing you need to worry your handsome head about. Let's go watch a movie. My brain is fried." The flash of annoyance in his eyes was fleeting, almost imperceptible, but I saw it. He had expected access, and I had denied it. It was a small victory, but it fueled the fire inside me. All the while, I was secretly coordinating with my younger brother, Ben. He was a tech genius, a freelance video editor and coding whiz. I didn't tell him the whole story, not yet. I just told him I was preparing a surprise slideshow for the reception, and that it was top secret. I sent him the files, the screenshots of the emails, the damning pages of the business plan, the audio file, and gave him precise instructions. I designed the layout myself, like an architect designing a building meant to collapse on its occupants. The timing, the transitions, the final, devastating slide. Ben was intrigued by the clandestine nature of it all. "This is some next-level prank, sis," he said over a secure call. "You sure you want to go this hard?" "I'm sure," I replied, my voice steady. "Just make sure it plays flawlessly. No glitches." "You got it," he promised. "When you give the signal, I'll switch the feed. They won't know what hit them." The rehearsal dinner, on Saturday night, was the grand finale of my week-long performance. It was held in a private room at a chic downtown restaurant. Everyone was there, the families, the wedding party. The air was thick with anticipation and champagne bubbles. Bruce, ever the charismatic host, stood to give a speech. He held my hand, his thumb stroking my knuckles. "To Alara," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "My brilliant, beautiful, and sometimes a little forgetful bride. You've designed a new world for me, a world filled with more love and light than I ever thought possible. I can't wait to spend the rest of my life trying to be the man you deserve." The room erupted in applause. It took every ounce of my willpower not to snatch my hand away. Then it was Cassie's turn. She dabbed at her eyes with a cocktail napkin. "I've known Alara since we were college kids with impossible dreams," she said, her voice wavering. "To see her here, now, about to marry the love of her life, it's just everything. Bruce, you make my best friend happy, and for that, I will love you forever. You two are proof that true love exists." She raised her glass. "To the happy couple." I stood there smiling, a hollow statue in a white dress, while the two people who had systematically dismantled my life toasted to my happiness. The urge to scream, to upend the table and expose them right then and there, was a physical force. But I held it in, locking it down deep inside me. Not yet. The stage wasn't big enough. The audience wasn't ready. The morning of the wedding arrived with a pale, ethereal light. I had slept surprisingly well, a deep, dreamless sleep, as if my body knew it needed to conserve all its energy for the battle ahead. The bridal suite was a flurry of activity. hairstylists, makeup artists, my bridesmaids, fluttering around like nervous birds. Cassie was at the center of it, of course, directing traffic, pouring champagne, playing the role of the perfect maid of honor. She helped me into my dress, her fingers cool against my skin as she fastened the long row of pearl buttons up my back. "Are you nervous?" she asked, her voice soft. I met her eyes in the mirror. Her face was a mask of concern, of friendship. It was a masterpiece of deceit. "No," I said, and it was the honest truth. "I've never been more certain about what I have to do." She mistook my resolve for bridal jitters and squeezed my hand. "He's a lucky man, Alara." "He has no idea," I said, turning from the mirror to face her. For a terrifying second, I thought I saw a flicker of something in her eyes, guilt, perhaps, or fear. But it was gone as quickly as it came, replaced by a bright, beaming smile. The ceremony itself was an out-of-body experience. As my father walked me down the aisle, the faces of our friends and family blurred into a watercolor wash. The only person I saw clearly was Bruce, waiting at the altar, looking impossibly handsome in his tuxedo. His eyes were fixed on me, filled with a look of adoration so perfectly feigned it could have won an award. As I stood before him, listening to the officiant speak of love, honor, and fidelity, my mind was a silent battlefield. Every word was a lie, every promise a perversion. When it was time for the vows, I took his hands in mine. His skin was warm, his grip firm. I looked into his eyes, the eyes of the man who had whispered my praises while plotting my downfall, and I recited the vows I had written months ago in another lifetime. The words felt like ash in my mouth. "I, Alara, take you, Bruce," I said, my voice clear and steady. The storm inside me was perfectly still, the calm at the eye of the hurricane. This was the final step, the last piece of the performance, before the curtain rose on my own production. When he slid the ring onto my finger, a beautiful platinum band he'd had custom made, it felt as cold as a shackle. And so we returned to the ballroom, to the applause, the toasts, and the celebration of a marriage that was already a ghost. After my father's heartfelt speech and Bruce's best man had told a few embarrassing but charming stories, it was my turn. Bruce squeezed my hand under the table. "You got this," he whispered, winking at me. I walked to the microphone, the white silk of my dress rustling around me. I waited for the room to quiet, my eyes scanning the crowd, landing for a moment on my parents, on his parents, on all the people who had gathered to wish us well. A pang of regret hit me, not for what I was about to do, but for the collateral damage, for the public nature of their humiliation. But it was a necessary pain. A private revelation would have allowed them to control the narrative, to paint me as hysterical, to spin their lies. I needed the truth to come out in a place where it could not be denied. "I want to thank you all for being here with us today," I began, my voice warm and full of emotion. I let it tremble just a little. When I met Bruce, I thought I had found my everything. He was charming, supportive, and he believed in me. He taught me about partnership, about what it means to build a future with someone, and he was right. Building a future is the most important project a person can ever undertake. It requires trust, transparency, and a shared vision. I paused, taking a sip of water. I could feel Bruce beaming behind me. In that spirit, I continued, I wanted to do something a little different. Instead of a traditional slideshow of baby pictures, I've put together a special project of my own that I want to share with all of you. It's a look at the future that's been built right under my nose. Ben, if you would. I gave a small nod to my brother at the tech table in the back. The lights dimmed. The room held its breath in anticipation. The first image that flashed onto the 4 screens was not a photo of me in diapers, but a screenshot of an email from Cassie to Bruce. Subject, our future. Bruce, darling, I've secured the preliminary designs for the Hawthorne project. Alara hasn't suspected a thing. A confused murmur rippled through the crowd. I saw Bruce and Cassie exchange a panicked glance. Before they could react, the next slide appeared. A page from their business plan showing my award-winning Serenity Pavilion design under the Sterling Designs logo. Then another and another. My client list, my financial data, A side-by-side comparison of my original watermarked blueprints next to their stolen rebranded versions. And then, the audio. Bruce's voice, smug and dripping with condescension, filled the cavernous, silent hall. To us, built on the back of Saint Alara, the ever-giving. Cassie's sharp, cruel laughter echoed off the crystal chandeliers. She looked like a lost puppy. It's almost too easy, Bruce. The sound of his parents gasping was audible from the head table. My mother's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. My father's face, which had been beaming with pride moments before, was now a thundercloud of disbelief and dawning fury. The guests were frozen, their faces a gallery of shock and disgust. The audio continued, every word a nail in their coffin, culminating in their toast to a future paid for by my wedding gifts on a beach in Bali, while I was left with nothing. When the recording ended, the final slide slammed onto the screens. It was the sleek, minimalist logo for Sterling Designs, next to my own established firm's logo. Beneath them, in large, simple text, were 2 words: "Congratulations on your new partnership." The silence that followed was absolute, heavy, and suffocating. I turned to face the head table. Bruce was on his feet, his face purple with rage and humiliation. "Alara, what the hell is this? This is insane!" he roared, his voice cracking. Cassie was sobbing, a hysterical, gulping sound, her face buried in her hands. Bruce lunged toward me, his face contorted in a snarl. "You psycho! You ruined everything!" Before he could take 2 steps, my father and my brother were out of their chairs, blocking his path. "You stay away from her," my father growled, his voice low and dangerous. I raised the microphone to my lips one last time, my voice ringing out with cold, hard clarity, cutting through the chaos. "This," I said, my gaze sweeping over them, "is a marriage that is over. And those gifts you were so eager to get your hands on? They will now be funding my legal battle against both of you for intellectual property, theft, and fraud. As for the rest of you," I said, turning to our stunned guests, "please enjoy the food, the music, the open bar. Consider it a celebration, my celebration, for dodging the biggest bullet of my life." With that, I placed the microphone carefully on the table. I didn't look at Bruce or Cassie again. I turned, my head held high, and walked toward the ballroom doors. The heavy doors swung shut behind me, muffling the explosion of shouting that erupted in my wake. Ben was waiting for me in the hallway. He wrapped his arms around me. "I am so sorry, Alara," he whispered. "I had no idea." "I know," I said, the composure I had maintained for a week finally cracking. A single sob escaped my lips. "Let's go home." We walked out into the cool night air, not as a jilted bride and her brother, but as survivors of a war I had been forced to declare. 1 year later, I stood on the observation deck of the newly completed Hawthorne Tower. The city glittered below me, a tapestry of light and life. My firm, Alara Vance Architecture, had not just survived, it had thrived. The lawsuit had been swift and decisive. The evidence was irrefutable. The court had ruled entirely in my favor, granting me a significant financial judgment and a permanent injunction against Bruce and Cassie ever using my work. Their firm was dead before it was born, and their reputations were in tatters. They had become a cautionary tale in our industry. The story of the wedding reception had gone viral, a modern-day tale of betrayal and epic revenge. It had brought a wave of new clients to my door, people who admired not just my designs, but my refusal to be broken. I rarely thought of Bruce or Cassie anymore. They were ghosts from a past that felt like it belonged to someone else. The pain of their betrayal had been a fire, and it had forged me into someone stronger, someone more discerning, someone who understood that the most important structures you can ever build are the boundaries that protect your own heart and your own work. I didn't feel bitterness. I didn't feel hatred. I felt a quiet, profound sense of peace. They had tried to steal my future, but they had only succeeded in liberating me from a life built on a lie. They had handed me a torch, and I had used it to light my own way forward. The view from the top was magnificent, and it was all mine.